All right, hello and good evening, everybody. Today I'm speaking to Gaopalelwe Santswere. He's based in Centurion, South Africa, so it's halfway between Johannesburg and Pretoria, and he's the chief scientist of the Nuclear Energy Corporation South Africa, senior scientist over there. So welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Hugo.
All right, so I put this title here as a Nuclear South Africa. Now, as a scientist, there, can you maybe explain to us how do you approach this problem of nuclear in Africa as a scientist? So, I always come from an engineering perspective, and we're not always in the same language.
Well, if you notice, the nuclear science and technology application is broader. We move from energy production to agriculture, nuclear medicine, water and environmental management. We talk of food safety. We talk of a whole range of things. So basically, what we're saying that when we talk of science, we say that the understanding of an atom, it's very much important in the nuclear industry because if you understand an atom and its capabilities and also its usage, it's much, much, much bigger than what we are dreaming of. Because a lot of people, when they talk about nuclear science, they confuse it with other things. And I always tell them that, the basic understanding of nuclear science is just by understanding what is an atom and how does it behave and what is the capabilities and also usage of that atom in order for us to do what we call human development and also advanced technologies and so forth.
No, makes sense, So as a scientist, always see it, from that analytical perspective. Because you so the perspective I come from is obviously energy. I've worked in the energy sector, and I've worked at, ITER, which is a fusion reactor. So we're always trying to untap, energy being the capacity for work, because that energy can be deployed in different sectors of the economy. But when I got into this field, I learned about health physicists, and I was learning about safety, and I was
Mhm.
learning about the, isotope research, things of that sort, which was, just still blows my mind how much I didn't know when you get into this theory, right?
No, most definitely. I mean, I'll make a typical example. One of the things that they are doing is isotope hydrology, just to understand the underground water so that they can advise municipalities how to manage them and also our resources. We know we are a water scarce country. So we've got one of the projects that is done by University of Stellenbosch and other Department of Water and Sanitation, just to map up the water, underground water around South Africa, so that at least when you advise municipalities, you can provide them with a proper, detailed analysis so that they can understand. One of the things that I can also talk to you about is that NTP, which is a Necsa subsidiary, they have now built a facility, dissolution facility for lutetium 177. It is a very, very good isotope to treat prostate cancer. And the results are showing that, it's effective and efficient when it comes to prostate. And then maybe just another one, it's a joint venture between Wits University and also Northwest University in terms of the nutrition for children, to check their obesity, and then how can you proper for advise the school feeding program to order to feed them what types of food so that you don't find our kids obese. So this is just to show you some of the few typical nuclear science and technology application or techniques. One of the most exciting one is also the malaria. If you go to northern KwaZulu-Natal province, they've got issues of malaria. So the issue is the mosquitoes. So you do sterile insect technique, to reduce the population. So if you reduce the population of the mosquitoes, of course, your transmission will become low. So you get rid of malaria and so forth. And on the same note, it is the issue of tsetse flies, the disease that they transmit called the Nagana disease. It affects livestock. It makes them smaller, and then you don't get, a livestock that are healthier and so forth. So you also take rid of the tsetse flies in order to ensure that the transmission becomes low. So those are the things that I can tell you about the progress of the projects that are currently happening within the South Africa that are using nuclear science and technology techniques in order to ensure that we do socio-economic benefits for the benefit of the country.
So when you talk of all these benefits and things, how do you explain the disconnect between public fear of radiation and what the scientists know about it? Like, why is there always this disconnect? Because there's no other technology, to my understanding, where people run away from it. Even though there's benefits.
No, I think we need to also blame ourselves and the generation that started nuclear. They started with a very, very wrong foot. Started with by killing human population. If you remember Nagasaki and also the Hiroshima, we started nuclear badly. We started by killing first, instead of saying we develop the human race in order to function properly. So I think that is what it started for. So it has been like, and also if you remember, in South Africa also, there was a lot of secrecy before, of the nuclear build, of the nuclear weapons program and so forth. There was, when Necsa started in 1965 until maybe 1991 or 2, it was a lot of secrecy. People didn't know what was happening. Even if you pass Necsa, you don't see a lot of buildings. You only see chimneys and all those towers. But a lot of buildings, you don't see them because it was built on secrecy. And post that is that also us as scientists and engineers and so forth, we didn't speak more of the benefits of nuclear science and technology until probably 15 years ago, when we started to say, now, let's educate the public about the benefits of nuclear science and technology, especially the socio-economic one, how this thing is in our everyday life. So I strongly believe that the fear was brought by that. And also the anti-nukes, they hate nuclear. We know that here in South Africa, it's a hot potato. The anti-nukes are, I don't know how many NGOs they're funded to bring this myth around nuclear. There's a lot of myth around nuclear. They are bringing more public fear. Sponsored people, they've got more access to the public than us because they are more sponsored. They've got resources.
But that's what I said to one journalist the other day. I was scolding him because he's saying nuclear is expensive. And I said to him, why do you not come to the guy who builds it, which is me? I'm a civil nuclear engineer.
Yes,
and ask how much it costs, okay? Why don't you come to me? Why do you go to a guy studying environmental science? And he's like, I never thought of that. I said, maybe I can give you prices and show you this is how I give to my customers. You do that for anything you buy. If you buy a car, you go ask Toyota, you go ask BMW, you go there. Okay, nuclear, who builds it? You can give me a price. No, it's this literature and the CSIR. And I have to ask you this question. What has happened to South Africa's CSIR? Because they're acting like the propriety of the Bundestag at this stage.
I need to be brutally honest with you with regard to CSIR. We went and hired a German guy to head CSIR called Tobias. Tobias was from Germany. We need to be brutally honest. And what is so unfortunate is that he came there through whatever the funding that was from the, the GIS, German investment, whatever it is. And they came there, they infiltrated CSIR. They brought there the studies that were unbelievably flawed to say that South Africa must go renewable, blah, 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 blah. Guess what? Few years after, he goes and heads a subsidiary of the German company called Enetrach. Now they own two wind farms. He left CSIR to go there. So you see where you can.
But
it's brutal.
But it's the same. This founder of Earth Life Africa, Robert is his name. I chatted.
Yes.
To him. Okay. He goes and he's now involved in cooperatives to help solar farms. Okay.
Of course.
This is corruption. It's daylight robbery. Okay, in front of you, and they're so blasé about it. They're not even ashamed about it. Usually thieves or people of that nature, they would steal money, but they would do it in a way to hide their credentials. They come with the branding. Okay, they come with the brand. They're so already open. They cannot see what they're doing is wrong. My grandfather was director of build environment at CSIR years ago. It was under the apartheid era. Okay, the purpose at that time was to help industry, to identify industrial problems because it was funded by government, only government money. Now, how can you have your scientific council of a country and your university at UCT, that Eberhard guy as well, getting money from foreign governments, and he thinks it's not infiltration? I mean, this is absurd. No, the French will never allow it. The Germans will never allow it, but we allow it. Why?
No, even anyone outside, any developed country will not allow an influence of another country. It's unfortunate that in this country, We've got those who don't know. I mean, look at Anton having that PhD. I don't even know what nonsense is that PhD. But he comes here and want to talk about energy. He says that we need to go 100% renewable. I said, I don't know from what land are you coming from, but whatever that land is, you are going to destroy whatever this country. I mean, you've got high unemployment, inequalities, and all those other issues. And one of the good things that I learned today is that there was an American guy. He's the CEO of one of the utilities. He said 7% of the economy is energy, electricity. The 93% will not function if you don't have that 7%. So now they want to destroy that. I mean, even the German example they like to say to me, I always tell them that, you are talking nonsense, because the Germans, they've got over half of their electricity from wind and solar, but they rely 75% from their coal, gas, okay, the close nuclear, coal, gas, and so on and so forth. So you cannot rely on something that is not working. There's no way where mirrors and windmills will pump any economy in the whole world. Never. The Americans, yes.
The thing is, these wind farms you have to rebuild every 15 years, because every engineer will tell you they get fatigued. They're going to clack. And look at Siemens' share price.
Yes.
They've realized it.
Yes.
We knew that. We warned about them. But next to Germany, there's the country I'm in, which is called France. Okay, it's got 58 nuclear reactors. The Germans last week said, no, they're going to beg the French for electricity. And I look at that PCC report of the government. Okay, it says all these good countries of renewable. It's like the renewable PR for government. Okay, it does not mention France, which has got lower CO2 than. So CO2 is your concern. France is a good country. Look out. It doesn't mention South Korea that said we're not going to go renewable. Doesn't mention Egypt that's building new ones. Doesn't mention Turkey. Nothing. No. We are looking at only the green ones, guys. These are the countries we are allowed to be in love in, and we're not allowed to look at any other country in the world. I mean, it's so obviously biased propaganda, and that it can infiltrate such high levels of government. I mean, it just frustrates me.
Yes, I mean, look at the two guys, prime minister from which one country was Netherlands and Belgium. They came here last week to do what? To tell us that we must go for a green hydrogen and pump it from what? These guys, even that $8.5 billion jet funding was nonsense. You want us to move away from something that is reliable and cheaper to us, which is coal, which you are importing back into your country so that you can pump your economy, but you are saying, no, South Africa, close yours, is against climate change, we must move away from it. All these other nations that are saying we must move to the green economy, they are dishonest. They want us to our economy to die, they must thrive. I mean, USA, they've got natural gas. They are thriving on natural gas. They move from coal to natural gas. EU, look at how EU, the use of natural gas have increased by over 40% since 2014, so that they can move that. We don't have gas. So what are we going to do? We're going to rely on what? Wind, mirrors and windmills. No ways. And I think
they want to place the wind in Richards Bay and give power to Johannesburg.
Imagine. And I've looked at Richard. Yes.
No, I've looked at those things and I said, okay, maybe it works, but it works for 15 years. I don't think it's a good system to replace your infrastructure every 15 years. You see, here's my theory. They're trying to create the infrastructure into consumer market. They're trying to have this self-leaking ice cream cone. Every 15 years, it's the same guy that's going to come back and he's going to rebuild it. And I think we're not going to figure this out. There's nothing wrong for South Africa. First of all, South Africa has 1% of the world's CO2. 1%, okay? France is 0.02%, by the way. That's why the French don't care about this. Okay, 1% of the world's CO2. I think we can continue using coal for another 1% for the next century. It's going to make zero difference to the temperature of the earth. So there's no reason to do anything. Okay, there's no reason to change policy and drastically decarbonize and all of this nonsense. This is just about stealing money, and it's a bunch of politicians that are too idiotic to realize what is going on.
And what is so frustrating? I don't know if you've seen for the past 2 days or 3 days or so, they've been attacking the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy Minister because he refused to sign that MOU with Netherlands and Belgium. Because I don't think that we need to sign things that are not, we don't know what are the conditions. People come there, they say, no, we'll make 1 billion available. They don't. You know what I've noticed? With all these fundings, what they do, they say, this is the money, but companies that are going to act there are their own companies. So the money never comes to the country, but you are going to be indebted without the money, because they will bring their own OME, they will bring their own constructors, they will bring everything from them, and then but you are sitting with debt that you don't know how you're going to pay it. I mean, look at how they are trying to cripple Eskom. You know, they don't want to fix coal power plants, but they want us to buy diesel. Where do you get diesel? Remember, 80% of our petroleum products are imported, which means they are beneficiaries also. They don't want they want us to rely. We have put together 6,500 megawatts of renewable energy by to date, but we don't even get more than 1,500. I always look at the Eskom system. I said, you see nameplate, they will tell, no, we've got so much renewable. They talk about the nameplate, but the actual power that comes from there is next to nothing.
Yeah, no, it's correct. I mean, and the other thing I always been saying is, if Eskom was such a big failure, look, there is some failure at Eskom, but my view has been this. First of all, get rid of NIASA, because why can you have Eskom selling at the last tariff? You're forcing it to fail. You're sabotaging it for your policy. Get rid of NIASA, allow Eskom to recapitalize, let's get replan, and you can still tell the private sector, okay, you can come in, but you're going to compete with a utility, and you pay the full integration cost. And if you can do that, Eskom will die, okay? But I think they are scared to know that actually Eskom has got more capital, and it might actually be a successful utility if it's given the resources and the means to compete.
And you know what is so funny about this renewable, whatever, lobbyist and so forth, is that they said that our former executives, they restrain the renewable for us to have a manufacturing sector. 85% of solar panels, they come from China. We can't compete with China. Never. Even if you would try to subsidize it, you can't compete with China, because China, they've got stable electricity. Look at Europe now. Most of the business are moving away from Europe. Even the German big business, last week they were saying that we are not going. The cost of energy has increased so much that business is no longer practical in Germany. And who's benefiting? USA and China. USA, they've got reliable electricity. Most companies will go to where? USA. Europe will be left deindustrialized. This is the same thing they want from us. They want us to be deindustrialized, and then so that our economy can go, and then we continuously become beggars. Because remember now, I'm sitting in load shedding now. You know, load shedding has become so part of our life that we have to install new bulbs that are battery-backed, inverters, and all these other things, which are not going to last for long. And now very soon I have to replace them and then put new ones. So imagine a person in the rural villages who cannot afford to have who doesn't even have 30,000 for a smaller inverter. So we want us to run like that. Government, we've got 35 million people who are government reliant. The poorest of the poor who depend on government on a daily basis, who want government to give them free electricity, free water. We have seen that in the midst of load shedding, we even have water shedding because the pumps are not working, the infrastructure is failing because there's no electricity. So those are the big things that we're not talking about it. And whenever you get to say, people say, no, nuclear is expensive. I said expensive in what's eye? It's because someone told you. You know, they used what they relied on in the last IRP, the IP report of 2017. I said the IP report is more focused on the West, the failures of Finland and also France. But let's look at the East. East are building on time, on budget, on everything.
But even France, they're not honest. Even France are not honest. It is true Flamanville is expensive. It's true Finland's expensive. It's true Hinkley Point is expensive. Why? Because every time they started rebuilding from zero. The second one, Sizewell, is not that expensive. It's coming down 60%. The third one is at the same price as the Chinese. So even the French are back in business, okay? They figured it out. You need to build 3 reactors in a good country to do it. So, but if you look, you're correct. The United States cannot build a reactor on time. So why would I go for somebody like that? It's expensive in America. The Chinese are building affordable. The Russians are building affordable. The South Koreans are building affordable. South Korea is very attractive for South Africa because 150 South Africans are building the South Korean reactors. Yes. So I think we should send the RFI out and we should say to those guys in Dubai, come back and help us build this thing. And you get your own skills.
But remember the big players, if they see that they're not going to have an opportunity to be part of that, You know, what I know, the reason why they are delaying our nuclear build is that they want to get the SMRs ready. They want to get the SMRs competitive in order for us. That's why you see now the new narrative is that, no, forget about the conventional plant. Let's look at the SMRs. Why? Because they've got how many designs in America? They are funding those things, those guys to get quicker. I mean, we saw when our president went and visited who is that guy, the king, whoever he is. He went and the visit was more on Rolls Royce. They took him to say, we are building an SMR, a small version of a light water reactor. But they are not there yet. The Chinese are commercially on with their HTR. The Russians, they are showing that they've got a floating reactor that is operational. So the South Koreans are coming. So anywhere they see that they cannot play, remember, I look at the geopolitics. If they cannot be part of the South African nuclear build, no one should be. So they will fund all these NGOs. Yes.
There's another reason which is very important here. You've noticed South Korea have signed a non-proliferation treaty like South Africa. It is completely possible now for non-aligned countries to lock out both Russia and America from nuclear reactors. What does that mean? It means their own populations are going to put pressure on them to sign the NPT. Okay, that's a big deal. There's something else that America doesn't want to tell. If America signs a non-proliferation treaty, it means Israel has to sign the non-proliferation treaty.
Yes.
Now we know Benjamin Netanyahu is facing prison sentences at the moment because he's involved with nuclear smuggling mafias. That's a big thing. That's in violation of international law already. But if it's found that Israel has violated international law, which we all know it's done, it means under existing American law, all aid to Israel has to be suspended immediately before they solve the conflict with the Palestinians. So you can see the geopolitics that's being at play against nuclear is incredible. It is something, and that's why they're funding. I mean, you look at the National Endowment for Democracy, the guys who instigate coup d'etats all over for America. They're funding the Earth Life Africa guys, or the Earth Life Africa Environmental Fund is one of these guys. They're all pumping money into this thing. So it's systemic sabotage against the South African economy, and that's what we should call it out for. And I have a way around it. I have a way to beat them. Our minister, Department of Energy and environmental ministers must pass our environmental laws to be based not on precautionary principles but hormetic principles. What is the exposure you can take for hormesis for all substances? That means they've got no argument to take people to court and they can go to hell. And that is my view how you should deal with these guys. We cannot have radiation-based laws on no dosage is safe. It's complete nonsense. I've been to Ramsar. I was in Ramsar this year. I was 250 millisieverts. I ate the apple from the narki trees that they had over there. Okay, and I did not die. I'm not green. You can see I'm still fine. The guy over there is 80 years old. He builds the stuff. So don't tell me every dosage of radiation is dangerous. It's complete nonsense. But it should be true for all our environmental laws.
You are absolutely correct. Actually, what we have noticed is that small doses of radiation is really good for humankind. Good for your health. Because every now and then you'll go and check yourself with the doctor, and the doctor says, you are still fine. But because of what they are trying to do, I mean, you look at what is this called NGO, South African Faith, whatever nonsense is that. I mean, that woman, Francesca or whoever, when she speaks, she just speaks violent, non-factual information. But because of serious funding, she gets all the platform. She goes to all the different radios, everyone listens to them. Because what they're trying to do, they want to rule the country by fear. Population must be fearful and all that. But I'm glad South Africans have started to notice. I listen to a lot of talk radio. You get a lot of views. People say, you know what, we're tired of these guys. Because we know they don't want us to develop. They are trying to stop everything, every development that the country wants, they want to stop it. You go to their protest. You ask an ordinary person there, that do you know what they're here? They said, no, they pay me to be here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had these guys in Paris, okay, and they were protesting for vegans, against meat eating. Okay, this is how crazy they're going. Imagine you want to tell South Africans not to have a braai. Okay, that you're gonna have a civil war. Okay, but they were doing this. So I went to this guys and I said, okay, can you tell me what is the temperature of the Earth? Just quickly. They don't know. But they're against climate, they're for climate change. They don't know anything. They really don't know anything. And this is, we just expose these guys. And what's interesting to me is it's the first time since 1994 that all the population groups are standing united against something. Listen to the Afrikaans radio. It's saying the exact same thing that you and I am saying at the moment. Listen, everyone is fed up because we're saying you don't want us to build stuff. You want everybody to prove every little thing is tiny. And you live in Johannesburg anyways, far away from the SO2 that you claim you're helping people. You're not helping anyone. All that you're doing is you're delaying economic development and putting people in poverty. And that is what exactly the stance
exactly. And yes. And they are putting the public in a very, very serious dilemma. And you know what? For what benefit? Who's beneficiating from this? None of us. Because all these other things, they bring foreign policies here which are not working, which themselves in their own countries are not there. But they want to impose them on us. They want us to go and do something that is bizarre. I mean, how do I have 300 years of coal? But I must leave it, I must export it to you for you to drive your economy. But for me, I must not use it because, the issue of the just energy transition. I saw the Presidential Climate Change Commission report. Nonsense, flawed. But it's pushed by who? Anton, Prof. Swelling from Stellenbosch. Those are the beneficiaries of all these projects because they know they get money.
Yeah, but so are you in conversation with government about this, and are they waking up to it? Because my understanding is the ANC is getting a little bit tired.
No, we are trying. No, we're pushing. We've been pushing. We've been trying to show them the scientific and the economic facts because we said leave politics, show them the scientific and economic fact. I think they're starting to see. They're starting to see that no. This narrative is not working for us because we told them that if you had started with the 9.6 gigawatt of nuclear, you will be desalinating water now. You will not have Quebec having zero, what you call approaching zero, whatever that thing when it comes to water issues. We should have solved our water issues. Our infrastructure would be much better. We would have stable, reliable electricity and all those other things. But because we decided to listen to the media and then the influence of the West, pumping money into individual pockets, and then now we're got a problem. People have child money. Where are they? They're gone. They're maybe celebrating it somewhere in a stable country where there's abundant electricity. They left us in load shedding.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I mean, it's really sad for those of us also who can see the problem far away. Look, they tried their luck in France, and luckily in France we've kicked them out. You know why we did it? The French military, the French deep state, the CIA, they train in the military schools, okay? And they saw what happened. Macron was elected as deregulation in favor of Margaret Thatcher. It was infiltration. They knew it. Yeah. And what happened is the French started mobilizing the workers. And before you knew it, all the nuclear workers, they started kicking them out. Today, the French elite are walking with the workers, and they're saying we're going to recommit to nuclear, we're going to respect the historical traditions of this country, and we're not going to give away our strategic national assets. So France has completely changed policy in the last few months. And South Africa must do the exact same thing. And I think all we need to do is go to government and say, listen, your policy is ridiculous. It's not written by us. You did not consult us scientists, us engineers. Nobody is in agreement with this nonsense. And these environmental guys, you need to look at their funding. Where is national security? Where is our intelligence?
That is our biggest problem. Yes. Yes.
They're not looking.
Because what we told them. They're not looking. Yes. And we told them that a no Quebec scenario, Cape Town will come, Western Cape economy will die. Without Quebec, it will completely die. It will shut down.
Wow. Yeah. And the guy usually doesn't know where his lights come from.
No, he doesn't know. All what he knows is go to Twitter and insult the minister.
Yeah, but this is what I don't understand. Okay, now you need to explain me the politics. I don't follow that lately. Minister of Energy put his foot down against this, and then Ramaphosa creates Minister of Electricity. Isn't that undermining the office of the Minister of Energy?
It does, leader. It does. One of the big things that we do, I don't understand what is the role of Minister of Electricity. I've tried to look for what is his mandate? What is his role? I don't understand.
But
All I see him is to
but you
have
see,
press conference after
he,
press conference.
but even he is changing his religion. Have you seen that? Even today, he started realizing maybe these guys are correct. So are they going to create a minister of transmission? What is it going to be next time? You know, realize
That is our.
No, I say what they need to realize is this: the workers in South Africa and the engineers are saying what you're doing is nuts. Okay, they're saying what you're doing is wrong,
Yes.
and they're saying what Gwede Mantashe is saying is correct, and they're saying it's so obvious the media is full of propaganda. So why don't you listen to the Minister of Energy? You're going to create a Minister of Electricity. Eventually, he's going to say what you want, and he goes back to what Mantashe was saying originally. So why don't we just listen to the minister who's in charge of it, who's obviously balancing different interests? Because I've been trying to explain this to investors the other day. They say, yeah, but Mantashe is stealing money. That I say, well, if he's stealing money, why don't you prosecute them? It's easy. You know, if you have evidence somebody's stealing money, you can prosecute them. Because he isn't stealing money, it's because he understands that there are other risks involved. Because he understands that those communities in Mpumalanga is going to collapse, and in Cape Town, the economy is going to collapse. He's hearing this from the engineers and advisors, and he's got a bit more instinct against this stuff. So my view is we need to support them. The Minister of Energy at this stage understands what is going on, and we should not let politics. You should never have policy being written by an academic, but because they're clueless. They've never been cheated in life. You know, they cannot see how they're being abused. And that is what we need to stand up for. We say, listen, we have our own engineering societies. We are not on board with this thing. We have a traditional way of developing South Africa, and we see absolutely no reason to deviate from that path while we have poverty. Until people are out of poverty, then maybe we can talk about climate. But for now, we need to stop.
Because now it's going to be difficult. You know, we're going to the general election next year. And who's going to go and campaign? People say, what? You brought load shedding. So what are you going to bring again? You cannot even talk to the public is so extremely angry. You can see with the amount of protest that is happening around the country that people are fed up. People want electricity. They want stable electricity. People want water. People want basic services. But because of these policies that are anti-South Africans, they're going to have problems. And we've told them that, look, as the governing party, if you don't fix these problems, you're going to have issues. Because now you will not even able to go and campaign. The communities will ban you alive because they will say you brought us load shedding. We don't have water. I mean, we have issues of Hammanskraal, people affected by cholera. People died there. Those are serious issues.
And you're saying the ANC is going to have a trouble in the election as well. Well, you see, what is the alternative at this stage? Because the other political party are even more crazier than them at this stage. If you look at what the DA is proposing.
That's why we're saying them, fix your things, change your policies, let your policies be developmentally driven. We don't have to find a way because we can still go on, but move away from this nonsense of saying that we're going to get a jet. We don't see a base load. You know, I don't know people who sit in those did you understand an energy system? You cannot work with an energy system or that works with what you call the VRE. I mean, it doesn't work, never. You need stable supply so that the demand, you can match the demand. Now they come and say, I know, I look at their crazy, said, no, backed up by battery. Firstly, they were speaking about gas. Now they've moved from gas now. They are now going to the new religious gospel, talking about battery. I said, what batteries? Because South Australia is suffering constant blackouts.
Yeah, but which battery is going to power the mines in South Africa? What battery are you going to put in Marikana? I would like to see that battery. If they thought about our industry,
yes.
I mean, Europe is a service economy mostly. They've moved their factories away because they're trading with, they're working in the services. South Africa is not a service economy. We're a heavy industry economy. You need base load capacity. You need to increase it even to allow those cars to be made in Port Elizabeth and in Pretoria, and we need it for the mines. So how, like, I can't
exactly
understand
my point.
The logic. The logic of this whole thing.
No, there's no logic there. I mean, I've asked one guy, I said, go to Northern Cape. Northern Cape, they're saying in the next 20 years, there will be probably about 100 mines there. How are we going to do that? Because Northern Cape, they are slowly discovering that Northern Cape is rich with minerals. You go to that place called Kuruman and Katu there. You must go and see the place. In the last 10 years, it's changed. There's lots of mining activities there, manganese and all those other things, iron ore and so forth. It's becoming the new gold. You go to Limpopo, Mokopane, there's new discovery of platinum there. So how are you going to sort of pump those things out of the ground with wind, what do you call them, wind whatever they are, and
Yeah.
mirrors? No, you can't. You
Yeah.
can't, and you so we are dependent on those minerals to drive our economy. I mean, South Africa, we still see mining as sort of one of the backbone of our economy. And
Yeah.
I looked at Botswana. Botswana, they said, now they have changed Botswana. They said, we'll go 50-50 with the BS. I like Botswana's government. They say, we need to beneficiate extensively from our diamonds. This is the approach that you should be taking. With all these our minerals, to say, oh, hold on. If you don't get beneficiation, our minerals are not going anywhere.
Yeah, I agree. There should be some kind of agreement with this thing. And the other thing that I think people need to be really stop being scared of is we need Transnet and these guys back on the streets again. We need them to function so they can get
Mm-hmm.
the exports going. Now, when you start mentioning it as a utility, people are okay. But when they figure out that means nationalization, they think you're Malema. And I'm saying, no, I'm all in
Mm-hmm.
favor of a market economy. I want free trade, everything. But there are some functions that are better run by the state. And energy seems to be one. France has renationalized EDF. That doesn't seem to be the end of the world. Pr.Nat was very well won when it was nationalized. Just equip it with the proper people to run it. And there's
Of
nothing wrong with
course.
those things. But and you can get rid of SAA. I'm all in favor of that. There's some SOEs that you can
Mm.
get rid of. But the key strategic assets of the country, in no country is going to allow that to go. Not even America, not Britain has done it. No country will.
No, no. But the issue is that we are saying all we have been saying put competent people, and I can tell you in South Africa there are very competent people who can run. This also is functionally better, and they can be doing good for South Africans. What we are saying is that eliminate these rotten apples, and then get people who are working. Those who are corrupt, put them in prison so that you can. Singapore, how did Singapore transform? They put people in prison, and Singapore transformed. Today,
Yeah.
Singapore, it's going far. You go to South Korea. I was in South Korea. I've been to South Korea a couple of times. Leader, you go to South Korea, you see how Seoul have transformed. You know, they will see how their lives have changed. Those bullet trains. I go to China. I said, China, they've shown us that transportation can be better. They fix their transportation. People can go to work. You don't need a car. Why can't you get to that state whereby we say that, look, our president had a dream to say that they want a bullet train. Where is that dream? Where
Well,
is that dream? Remember in the sauna, he said, I have a dream that we'll have a bullet train from here to Musina.
well, yeah, well, that was too ambitious for our country. But I mean, France at the moment, I'm not driving a car. France has got a good railway system. You go around with railway. Sometimes you drive a car. Some people still use it. It's a bit complicated, but there's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, a railway we need for our mines. We need the freight to go to
Of course.
to the port.
I always go to Vienna in Austria. I mean, my friends who are staying there, they've been there for 10 years or so. It doesn't even own a single car. He said, why? Because the metropolitan transportation is far better. My kids use the train, the buses. And then I said, if you have a system like that, then, remember electric trains, then you can reduce your carbon footprint because people will not use too many cars. But we have a how train that is not working for the majority, it's working for the elites. You see, that is where our thinking is wrong. We need to find a thing that can work for the majority. People who come from townships going to work. If the transportation is that good, I can tell you will actually half of the cars that are on the road.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of solutions that people need to implement, but we need the right policies to go forward. Now, my view has been, and I've spoken out to a few people about this, is let's admit that South Africa had a wrong developmental path. Okay, this idea that
Yes.
the market is going to solve the millions of people in poverty is completely naive. Okay, it didn't work in different countries. Go back and run South Africa like a European social democracy, like the South Korean, like an
Mm-hmm.
Asian tiger economy.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what they did in terms of policies and try and implement that for our local conditions. Let our people come up with solutions. Because when I speak to people, and it's interesting, whether I speak to Afrikaners, whether I speak to the unions in South Africa, they're all saying the same thing. Let's go
Of
back to this
course.
because we've got the minerals, we've got the electricity. Let's run it like an Asian tiger economy, and we can
Yes.
still have business. Business will not be a threat because business you need to sell the stuff to people, and they can still have you guys in Sandton. So that seems to me to be a most sensible policy for the country. But we need to come to the admission that the current policies of the government is a failure, and that is where I think the stubbornness is.
But remember, our business is so greedy. I mean, our business community, they are so greedy. They want everything to themselves. You know, I've never seen a business community so greedy like South African business community. They
Yeah, you
want
see,
anything, everything to be themselves,
it's
to
not just
feed their
themselves.
own.
There's something else
Mm,
which they don't understand. Um, they see unions and people as in competition with them all the time. That they need to find ways
mm,
to feed the workers because the workers are rebelling. One of the richest countries in the world is Norway. They've got high levels of unions and they have the richest income in the world. Now, how can that
mm.
destroys their theory? Why? Because the unions and the people say they come together and they say, how can we cooperate? How can we make this work
Yes.
better? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find Norway does not have a minimum wage, but yet they've got lots of
Mm-hmm.
employment. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When the unions ask that their staff members be retrained if there's profit made, that they get some more higher salaries. So everyone wins in the situation. The businesses can still make their money. You still have millionaires in Norway. That's a very good, sensible policy. So we are seeing we have the zero sum game attitude where whenever there's business, I mean, I was speaking to a group of investors today, okay, and they were
Mm,
saying to me, South Africa needs a Margaret Thatcher to sort out the unions. And I said, guys, are you serious that you're saying? Do you understand what you're saying? Because do you realize we have tribal
mm,
conflict? We have conflict all over the country. What
mm.
if you think you're going to take a guy's job away at Kumati and you're going to replace it with a solar panel? I can guarantee you those guys are going to go and strip that solar panel. They're going to destroy it out of anger.
They will take it out and sell it.
Yes, but they don't think this way. They think it's just markets. They don't understand the historical conflicts of our
No.
country. They've got no clue what's going on. And this is the message
And
needs to come into them. They need to come and speak to the
yes,
unions and cooperate. And you can find a good solution between you if you do it well.
definitely. And look at the culture that they've created. Do you know? Look at the private security. You know, it's a thriving business in South Africa. Why? It's because of the inequality, poverty, unemployment. People are resorting to go. If I don't have it, I'm going to take it from your house. Look at the private security, how thriving it is in the country. That should give, I don't know, the business community, don't they see that, or this is an alarming, or it's a time ticking bomb? We cannot have a thriving private security. Clearly, there's a huge problem
Yeah.
because we need to find, because people are, it's not like South Africa people want to go and steal, but because of the level of poverty. If employment was high, do you think we have this high level of crime? Well, not, because people will say, no, 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 I'm working, I've got money, or my business is thriving, therefore I can afford healthcare, I can afford what. So therefore I'll raise my kids nicely. People are moving away from people. Township schools are becoming white elephant because people are moving from township school to sub the town schools and so forth. You are creating a very dangerous situation whereby
Well,
people don't want to stay in their surroundings, but they want to go somewhere.
well, all that you're doing is you're creating an apartheid that is based on money, basically.
Yes,
That's all
yes.
it is. I mean, John Pilger, who was a very good journalist who he even covered the apartheid regime at the time and traveled the world. And he
Mm,
made this speech in Cape Town a few years ago where he said what he came to realize is that the apartheid system was just implemented in the wrong way because on a global level, this is also happening. I mean, you look at America. Let's just talk about them for a minute. You know, there's half the American men today that can work or not working in the United States. And they are not questioning the dogma ideology. America's infrastructure is built in the New Deal in the 1930s and 40s. It's collapsing at the moment. And they're facing the same crime issues. It's a bit less than us yet because they still have more wealth. You're going to come to a point, it's the law of entropy. You have to come to a point where you have to rebuild your infrastructure. And South Africa is a good opportunity now where we need infrastructure. We have lots of men without a work. It's not very difficult to see the solution. You can mobilize a little bit of the capacity of the state. You don't have to go blow all your pension money. I'm not suggesting that for a minute, but you can blow a little bit of it. You can be smart with it. You can get money from China for development or even the IMF. It doesn't matter how you get it. And you can use it to redevelop your infrastructure. And then at the same time, you solve your poverty problems as well. I mean, because we have, you see, we've come, especially the whites in South Africa, have come to adopt an allergy to government spending. They think the government is bad at everything. But when it comes to infrastructure, government is the only institution with the long-term capital expenditure, with that massive amount of money for infrastructure. And my view has been, let's sit down with a good bunch of engineers. We plan the infrastructure. Most of it will probably be rebuilding old infrastructure, rebuild Eskom, because in the next decade, all our power stations are coming to the end of their life. We have to rebuild it. We have no choice. We need to accept that. And we can turn the entire country into a construction site. It takes one generation, and before you know it, you're like China and you're like Korea. And that is, to me, the model that we need to use to move forward. I cannot think of a way that the private sector is going to do it. And I would like for them to show me a way, but I don't have one. Yeah, you're muted, huh? You've muted yourself, so I can't hear you. Yeah, hold on. You need to unmute your mic first. I cannot hear that.
Sorry,
I missed everything. Yeah. Now I can hear you. Yeah, I missed everything. Yeah.
Yeah. No, what I was saying is that one of the most things that we don't understand is that if you train the country to a construction site, most people will be employed. And when most people are employed, you're going to have less money spending on social development, less money spending on health. Then you can use that money for other things.
Yeah, and you can help them, get their own houses because they have a pride in buying your own house and own things in their families. And nobody wants to steal, as you say. Some people are real criminals, but most people do it out of desperation, still in poverty. And you need to fix the police. So there are solutions here, but we need to overcome. We need to admit first that we are on a wrong developmental plan, and then we need to stand up to these NGOs. That's my appeal to people: is start calling out these NGOs for what they are, because they're just delaying the development of the African continent.
You are absolutely correct. The NGOs, they must get rid of. I mean, look at what they did to that seismic exploration in the East Coast. Which fishes died? People have been doing seismic explorations all over the world. Which fishes died?
Yeah, no, they're just crazy. They block development of field. Yeah.
Yes, and our judicial system also is a problem. We need to speak about it. Because our judicial system must also understand that government has a developmental agenda. I must tell these NGOs that government is doing this for the benefit of the people.
But we should look at the laws that they are abusing, and we should just get rid of them. It's not very difficult. You see, I'm not yet. I'm still a Democrat, but I am starting to like a guy like Sisi, who just locked up all the NGOs in jail. He put them in jail and he said, we're done. Okay. I don't want to go that route. But I can guarantee you, if they don't start listening to you and me, that is where the people are going to force the government. You're going to have a guy coming in tomorrow that is just going to say, well, if you start doing it, you're in jail. End of discussion. And then you sit with a problem that you have a dictatorship. So we're trying to avoid that, and we're trying to tell them to start backing off. Because if you're going to continue with this route, you are being held accountable. Because I hold them accountable for load shedding at the moment. Both South Africa, those guys, I say they are responsible for South Africa. And I think all South Africans need to be angry at them, because they are the guys who block the thing. And that is where we need to direct our anger and say to these guys, get out of the country. We don't want you here. You can join the writer in Germany, wherever the hell you are. We don't want you.
Yes. But I'm glad that we're starting, because I've seen that a lot of South Africans were speaking on different platforms, were having serious engagement. I saw even the energy summit that was hosted by COSATU. It was very, very positive, because they were speaking of real issues to say we are not going to allow this nonsense of us having to close our power stations. I always tell them, I said, there's something called a parking lot phenomenon. If you go to a wind farm, there's no parking. But if you go to a coal power plant, a nuclear power plant, a gas or a hydro, you get parking. That tells you that there are workers here. But if you go to a solar or a wind farm, there's no parking. That clearly shows that this thing does not create work. There's no job here.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I think this is sort of the approach we need to say. Let me ask you this: are you optimistic that people are pushing back and that things are going to go in the right direction?
No, I'm very much optimistic because I know I've listened to shows, I've listened to how people react. You listen to different talk show radios. You hear people. I mean, even on social media, we follow social media. I see a lot of people are very angry now, especially when it comes to electricity. I've noticed that they are trying to say, no, you know what, we need to push back against that. And I also noticed that, our Minister of Electricity also said he has never seen a system that works on renewable. So you listen to the Minister of in Electricity and our DMRE, we're starting to speak the same language now. And I also
Well,
start to see that,
I'll tell you this: the Minister of Electricity and Energy, I know this, have both read my articles on nuclear power, where I showed them how much
yes.
it costs and things. I know them because I send it to people who send it to them. So I hope that I have had some influence on them. I mean, it's just a fact.
No,
It's
no,
complete nonsense that we cannot afford it. South Africa
no,
is
no,
the
no,
ideal
yes,
opportunity at the
yes.
moment. Yeah.
No, 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 you are quite correct. And actually, I like, I also follow you. I like some of the comments what you make. I follow a lot of guys. Some of them I retweet, some of them I share to different groups. And then people are appreciative, And I also like our former executive, even Jacob Maroha, that guy speaks engineering and science. And we follow them, we start to spread. So people start to see that no, 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 this thing is not working. We need to follow what is working. So I've noticed a lot of people now, even from different unions who are starting to speak the same language. I was with the guys from NUMSA last week. They were saying that we're going to push back against this presidential climate change commission. So I think if the unions can group them together and speak with one voice, it will influence also the ordinary people because they will start to stop. Remember one guy when I get home and I speak to my family speaks to that. We start to get the message around. But I
But
think now a lot of people are starting to talk against this thing.
but that's what I encourage everyone is to spread this video around, spread my Substack, follow him on Twitter. Some people say it in a different language.
Yeah.
And what I find very interesting, it's the first time I can remember that the whites and the blacks are totally in agreement about this. The first time I can, the
Yes.
DA is in trouble because they're going against the electorate. The DA's
No,
electorate
I
is
noticed
going
that. Yes, I know. Yeah, John
John Steenhuisen
Stacey
is
and Helen.
who's this guy? Kyle Milham. He's read my
Yes.
articles. I know that because I've said to him, Mr. Milham, you to read it. And he's yes, but our policy is this and that. And I said, well, that's what the unions want. That's what your voters want. You need to start thinking about changing your policy. So the DA has to change their policy because at this stage, I'm voting for the ANC or Malema. Okay, if the ANC change their policy, and they need to realize it
No,
because
no,
load shedding is more important.
leader. I just came out of load shedding now. I can't live like this. I have to put so much money on backup. We have to back up and back up and back up. No, we can't afford that.
Yeah, and my family back home, they've got my father starting a small business. He needs to electricity and stuff. And people out of the country, what isn't said, we have to send money back for our parents as well. Okay, because there's
Yes.
no jobs. Even if there's jobs, the salaries are reduced. Inflation is catching up in South Africa, so it's a very big problem. And the people outside of South Africa are starting to ask questions as well, and they would like to come back
Yes.
to offer their skills to help the country. And I think there can be a good compromise to say you come and help the people and train them with what you learned outside of the country. There's good opportunity here. We're saying all those
No,
guys
most
who build this
definitely.
stuff in Dubai and like me in France and those in America, he said, guys, we're going to create jobs and we want the most skilled people to run the industry, first of all. Obviously, you guys came, but you want us to work with the locals, don't undermine their intelligence, and we can rebuild the country. And that can be a good, promising way forward. And if we speak with
No,
them.
most definitely.
I
Yes.
think this is
Most
maybe
definitely,
load
I
shedding is a
agree
good
with
thing to wake
you.
the South Africans up a little bit.
Yes. Yes. It was a blessing in disguise. I think you are correct.
Anyways, my man, I would like to thank you very much for this conversation. I think we're going to do it in the future as well. Then we can send this to the politicians so they can realize that we're speaking with one voice now.
No, no, no. Thank you very much for the platform. My apologies for over the weekend. Hey, when you have, you think that will go for an hour at the extent, but I think it was a great conversation. We should do it more often.
All right, thank you, everyone, and thanks everyone for listening.